Hey, I'm Elise, all around music lover and musician. Architects of the Underground is a series where I interview people from the music industry that make it go round. There's no shortage of challenges that can often paint a bleak picture for the future of the music industry. So every Friday, an interview is released, and this week I'm on my way to the Westside Bowl for the first ever episode. I'm going to be talking to Nate Offerdal, co founder of the infamous Westside Bowl in Youngstown, Ohio. We're going to discuss common issues venue owners face, where there's hope, and areas where things seem really bleak. But don't worry, we're going to let you know what you can do to help. So let's dig in. Hey, Nate.
How you
Let's
doing?
let's start with some background. So, what inspired you and Jamie to open Westside Bowl?
It was something that we have had conversations about throughout most of our marriage. This December will be our 30th wedding anniversary. So for the first 20 years of our marriage, we it was something we talked about on and off, but it was never really more than just an idea that we talked about here and there. It wasn't until I worked at a local bar slash venue here in Youngstown when I was in graduate school where it started to feel like something that we could actually pull off. We talked about it a little bit more, and then we reached out to the folks at the Beachland Ballroom, Cindy, Barbara, Mark Letty, and they sat down with us and were very generous with their time. And in that conversation, we started to feel a bit more comfortable with the idea. They also then reached out to a good friend of theirs named Jenna Petrola, who was doing um, economic development work here in Youngstown. And when we met Jenna, that's when it moved from being just an idea to something that ended up being a concrete plan. She was the one who knew who to reach out to locally, whether it was in the business community or the funding community. And really, if it wasn't for her and her believing in the idea, and wanting to see something like the Beachland Ballroom or May Halls or the Grog Shop here in Cleveland, it wouldn't have happened. So, big thank you to Jenna once again. She always gets very embarrassed when I bring her up, but she was the pivotal link between it being an idea and it becoming a real life thing. And then from there, it was one step after another after another. We met with the Small Business Development Center at the Youngstown State. They were also instrumental in getting us hooked up with eventually the funder who gave us the loan to buy the place.
That's awesome. And then it was like when you guys started, it was 2018, right?
Yeah, so the planning of it probably started in 2014, 2015. I naively thought that we would just get a loan and that would be that. It ended up, when the guy at the Small Business Development Center asked me how long I thought it would take to get open, I told him 6 months and he laughed for like a long time. And then he said, it's probably going to take you 2 to 3 years. And that's basically what it took. So about 2015 was when the planning started in earnest. 28 March 7th of 2018 is when we bought it.
And then, I mean, as most business owners know, like hitting that 2 year mark is usually like when things start to look better, 2, 3 years in. But you guys were hit with the pandemic,
Almost 2 years to the day.
unfortunately. So, like, how did you have to adjust your vision then? And, how did you overcome it?
Well, so that first day, I decided there were a lot of venue owners that I spoke to the week leading up to the shutdown that said they were just going to close. And I knew just for my mental well-being that there was no way that I would be able to just sit at home and cross my fingers and hope everything would be okay. So we made the decision that we were going to sell carryout food. We had a kitchen to begin with. At the time, about 10% of our business was carryout. So that first day, I went home and I told Jamie, I was like, "We're fucked. Like, we're not going to make it. There's no way we're going to be able to figure this out." But I came in the next day, and good friends of mine in a band called Rebreather came in, and they said, we don't know how to help, but we know that we want to. So here's $100. The next 10 pizzas, they're on us. So just anybody calls in, you just tell them, hey, pizza's on us. So we shot a little video. It was me and Barley and Steve, and introduced them and said, the next 10 pizzas are on them. As soon as we posted it on social media, it took off like wildfire. And that first week, I think we had 100 pizzas prepaid for. The first month, it was almost 500. By the time we stopped officially doing the program, we had given away over 10,000 pizzas.
Wow.
And we didn't give them away. Other people gave us money.
So-
We made them and then we handed them out. So we were just the facilitator of somebody else's generosity. So ultimately, what that allowed us to do was figure out how to do carry out food really well, and in a really weird and almost perverse kind of way, having that pay it forward pizza program, if you want to call it that, was a way for us to market to people that A, we were still open, and B, that we did carry out food. And we went from having weekends where we would do $2,000 to $3,000 total that second year to selling $4,000 worth of food in a shortened day during the pandemic. We thought we were going to have to buy new kitchen equipment, new oven, like all that. It went insane. And the silver lining of all of that was it taught us to be adaptive, which I think the people that survived the pandemic, all of them would say that that's probably the silver lining of it. And we retained that business. So now we're still doing that carry out business like we did. We still have customers that we made for the first time in that period. So
that helped. But you guys also still did a little bit of music during that
Sure.
time, even when things were shut down.
So we obviously have sound engineers that work for us and lighting engineers that work for us and security guys that work for us. So when we were closed, all of them were going crazy sitting at home. So we decided we were going to do live streams. So we invited tons of bands in, some that were known to us, plenty of others that were not, gave them the opportunity to come in and, stay focused and, good at playing live, although it really wasn't live. We recorded everything, posted it on social media and on YouTube. And it gave us an opportunity to, have our sound engineers still coming here, working a little bit, and it was a way. It was both good and bad. It was a way to still sort of stay in contact with that aspect of the business, which was really the only reason I was here. And to this day, it's the only part I still really love is the live music part. But it was also hard to see the place completely empty and have them playing to nobody, but still see them play like everyone, like the room was full. It was a jarring, very paradoxical situation.
I can imagine. And like we've talked a lot about the food and the restaurant and how that it's like the activities, the restaurant, the bowling, the other kind of community events you have really keep this place going. But it is like the live music is what you and Jamie really wanted to focus on. And I mean, like many venues, you and I talk regularly about this, like it is hard to be profitable and, help these up and coming bands or just local. I mean, people need a place and an outlet to create. So, like when it comes to the sustainability of the business model, what are the biggest hurdles you see?
I mean, what little profit margin there was 10 or 15 years ago is completely gone. That would be the first thing. I think the only good part about that is that wages have gone up. I think was long overdue. The hardest part was that they went up so quickly, but I think overall that was a positive. I think sustainability wise, us being a hybrid is how we stay in business. Us not just obviously I'm here, and I would argue Jamie is too, for the live music part of it. That was the whole idea behind buying the place. Obviously, we didn't want to buy a bowling alley. That wasn't the plan. It just sort of worked out that way. But being adaptable and being flexible and not being hyper focused on just one thing to the detriment of the others is why we're still open. I think if we didn't have everyday business with the bar and food and bowling, and then later on down the road, the record store, we wouldn't be here. It's just that simple. I look at places like the Grog Shop and the Beachland and marvel at how they stay afloat, because I don't know how we would be able to handle it if all we could count on is the revenue from when we did shows. It wouldn't be financially feasible.
Because basically, like for people who don't know, like you can have a show sell out even, and that doesn't mean that the business has
Sure.
recouped their investment.
Yeah, most shows, and most is a relative term. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 70% of shows don't break even. Now, I mean the show itself, between what you pay for the sound engineer and what you pay for the lighting engineer and what you pay for the door guys, what you pay for the security, what you pay for hospitality for the bands. Most shows, definitely a majority, don't don't cover the expenses of doing the show. Now there are some that are fantastic and sell out and everybody makes money and that's great, but those are very few and far between. Usually we have sold out. We might have 10 sold out shows a year between the small room and the big room. And it's just incredibly expensive to do anything. I think that's something that anyone watching this can understand. Everyone's life has gotten more expensive, and it's gotten substantially more expensive to do shows here. And we believe in paying people a fair wage, and I think that is will always be the case. But it also lends itself to making things more expensive.
And like when it comes to like doing shows, do you think about scaling back at all, or is this something that you you really just, as long as you can sustain it, you're trying to host?
Yeah, I think in a perfect environment, we would have live music 6 days a week. Right now, it's some weeks 2 to 3 days, some weeks 3 to 4. Pre-pandemic, it was definitely 5 to 6. We've scaled back. It was a sort of a conversation that we've had not just between my wife and I, but between us, the managers, the security staff, the audio engineers, and everyone's on the same page. Everyone understands, that most weeks doing a show on a Monday or Tuesday, like even if the bands are amazing, at the end of the day, the band doesn't make much money. The house loses money, and it's counterproductive. I think probably over the next 12 to 18 months, we probably won't exceed 3 to 4 nights a week, and we've supplemented those other nights with other things like bingo and trivia and having a DJ like you're going to DJ tonight. And those things work. They're smaller scale, they're less expensive, they're not as labor intensive. So I think that's where we're focused. And I think the other thing that we've started doing is opening the books, so to speak, to other events, community events, fundraisers, wedding receptions, baby showers, you name it, we'll do it. It makes scheduling things a bit more complicated, but it's a 30,000 square foot space with multiple areas to do things in. So, might as well utilize the square footage. If you're going to be open, you might as well try to use as much of the building as possible. It's not the downside to that is it's not why I'm here. It's not what drives me. It's not why I wake up in the morning and come here. I come here because of the music. But were it not for that other stuff, there would be no here. So
Right, and it'd be hard to support the musicians
Yeah.
and the artists that you want to see,
right,
because like I've experienced it. I know other bands have, where you're talking to a promoter and they knew going in that they might have lost money, but what meant more to them was getting the band or
Yeah.
bands, the tour
Sure.
package at that venue.
Yep.
But obviously, again,
Yep.
that's not sustainable for the
No.
average business owner, because it's like they're relying on their other revenue streams to support art. So, like, what is something that you see maybe in the intermittent that maybe the government, the people that go to shows, like, where do you think like help needs to come in?
I think one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot over the last 6 months, and it's probably something that we have a mayoral election coming here in Youngstown, along with city council is November. I think that once that all settles, I would like to have a very long, detailed conversation with all of them to say, listen, places like ours, um, for every dollar in a ticket, there's $12 in economic activity across the rest of the local economy. We not only drive job growth, we drive, spending in the city. We just had a big metal fest here with the guys from Hell's Headbangers over the last weekend. I didn't look really close at the Eventbrite data, but I want to say that there were ticket sales in something like 15 different states. Right? I can confidently say that there isn't another business in this town that's regularly bringing people in from 5 to 10 to 15 different states across the United States to spend money in restaurants and hotels on a regular basis. It's just not happening. So I would like to see, and most places like us, whether it's us or Cedars or even brewery like Noble Creature or Birdfish or Modern Methods, friends of ours and folks we do business with all the time that also do live music all the time, that we all own old buildings in downtown or near downtown areas across 3 different counties, and those buildings are incredibly expensive to maintain. And if they could see the value in investing in new parking lots, new roofs, better air conditioning, solar power, for places like ours, I think that would make a monumental difference for us. It would free up capital that we're spending on building maintenance, and other upgrades like electrical, and air conditioning. It would free up that capital to then reinvest in other parts of the business that would also drive more people to the west side of town.
To
Youngstown or Warren or Columbiana, any of those.
And that's what it is. Like, I think that's art, entertainment. We often treat it like it's this luxury thing that people can just do without. But in essence, that's where community is. That's where you critique the system that we have. And it's also a place that draws people. It's an attraction.
Yeah, people are not coming to Youngstown to see St. Elizabeth Hospital, right? Even though it is the biggest employer in town, right? It's the same. People aren't traveling from other states unless they're coming for a football game to see YSU's campus. They're just not doing it. But they are coming here to see the breweries and the venues in the town and the towns that surround us. And, while there are larger employers than us, clearly the heart and soul of any economy and in any small to medium to large size city is the arts and entertainment infrastructure that's inside that city. That's what brings people into town.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview.
You're welcome.
Do you have any last points or words of encouragement for?
Support local venues. That would be all I've got. I mean, if you don't, they won't be around.
Yeah, I mean, and with the price of like more mainstream artists, whether you're going to Blossom or like any larger venue, it's like you can really see 2, 3, 4 local shows for that same amount of money. And that money, in my opinion, and probably yours and a lot of other small business owners, that money does so much more for your local economy than these big venues.
Absolutely.
So.
And you never know, if you take a chance on a band you never heard before, it might become your next new favorite band. It's happened to me 1,000 times in my life.
And they could end up being that next band that you see that becomes the next, Metallica or Alice in Chains, these bigger artists. And they don't. That's the thing I think I fear most when you see the state of smaller venues now, is just like, we're going to have more, not that there's anything wrong with trust fund kids or this, but it's a very like manufactured artistic sound versus people that are actually, that struggled, that you can relate to in a way. So
absolutely.
awesome. Well, thank you so much,
You're
Nate.
very welcome.